we talk. Welcome, everybody. My name is Mina Jane. I'm the director of the Ashland Public Library in Massachusetts, and I'm always happy to be here with Leelynn Brady talking about diverse and inclusive book recommendations because she has the best. Like, it's so amazing to me, like how every month she comes up with a new list that still blows me away every single month. So hopefully you also will be blown away. I think that we always have really good conversations too. So feel free to like add questions and comments into the chat as we go. Before we get started, I want to say thanks to the Friends of the Ashland Public Library for supporting all of our programs. And I'd like to thank Leelynn for letting us share this program with other libraries because, of course, you all know this, when libraries work together, we make magic. If you, as I said, if you have questions or comments, feel free to use the chat for that. And I will be also sending out a list of all of the books that Leelynn is recommending tonight. So you don't have to furiously be taking notes unless you like to, which some people do. So Leelynn, welcome back for our monthly program, which has been so much fun all year long. I look forward to it every single month.
Me too. It's always great to figure out which books I'm going to talk about next and then like making sure I didn't talk about them like previous months. So I'm always having to reference. But I'm back with 6 books and I like the flow that we have. I'm going to start with the middle grade, then a young adult, and then the rest are going to be adults. So if you're new here, that's kind of the format that I go with. But okay, I'm going to start with my first middle grade book. It's called Sugar and Spice by Gail D. Villanueva. Miss Villanueva is a Filipino author, and both of her characters are Filipino as well, or Filipina. So her work is really steeped in the Filipino family life, very strong Filipino ties in here. Also the folklore as well. And as you can tell, can a dash of magic turn a bully into a bestie? So think of like magical realism or contemporary fantasy where there's magical elements taking place in our world. Basically these two main girls, they're in a conflict, and there's a tiny bit of literal magic that complicates everything because magic can't be perfect all the time, right? So one of them makes a potion, and that potion is meant to teach a lesson to the other person, but it ends up teaching a much bigger one about empathy, hurt, and community. It is light for the most part. It is middle grade, but there are some parts that can get pretty heavy and emotionally spacious, is what I would say. So there, watch out for some trigger warnings. There might be just sad moments that you might not anticipate, but I really like this book a lot. One, because I don't really see a lot of Filipino authors in middle grade, so when I do, I really like that. And surprisingly, the Filipino culture is very similar to the Chamorro culture. So there's a lot of like food elements and stuff that I'm like, oh yeah, we have something similar. And in Guam, there's a big Filipino population as well. So I'm like, oh cool. And then oh sorry, I'm also kind of sick. But I really like the fact that it treats their culture as an ordinary thing. Like I said, when we're growing up, I know when I was growing up, there wasn't a lot of other types of cultures. Like I didn't see Chamorro culture in a lot of books, certainly didn't see a lot of Filipino culture in books. So treating it like it's just part of the world, there's nothing special about it. It's not like, oh, this is like a brand new thing. You know what I mean? It's not like a marvel or a novelty. It's just part of life. And that's how it is in life. Like you should be able to witness different cultures at any time and it shouldn't be so weird. So I
Mm-hmm.
really like that. And I do also like that even in the lessons that they're learning, these middle schoolers are having to learn about accountability and healing without shaming kids for feeling the
Mm-hmm.
negative emotions that they have. So I just really, really liked it. And I do love that it has the magic infused in it as well, because it gives it a little fantasy, but it's still very much rooted in real life. So,
Mm-hmm.
first
And I
one.
think, as you said, when a book doesn't center the culture in terms of like an other, then anybody can read it and feel like they're just reading about kids that are bullied or kids that are, you know, just like them, in
Exactly.
many, many ways. But obviously, no two individuals are the same. So I love that concept of kids learning from each other without even realizing it.
Exactly. Thank you. Yeah, it's just, anybody can be the hero in their own story. I've always said that. I've always talked about that in my book journey, and I think it's important for other people to see that other people can be the stories, the heroes of their own story as well. So,
Mm-hmm.
That's what I like. Okay, next one is a young adult book. It's called Your Welcome Universe by Whitney Gardner. I actually really like this one because the main character is deaf. And this was one of the first books that I read that had a main character with a disability. She's also a queer teen artist. So you can see in the background, she does a lot of graffiti, and that is how she builds her art. I really liked that this book was very authentically portrayed in the deaf culture as well. There isn't an audiobook from what I remember, but you can look through some of it. You'll see like some art pieces that she did, and then
Oh,
they're all, yeah, like this one was really cool. So you have to like pick it up and read it. And then there's some parts in the book too where they're like signing, and they'll show, there you go, I found a good one. They'll show how to sign it. And I think that
mhm.
was really great to kind of translate some of these words that you don't always get to see all the time. And this was just a really good book. So the main character, she's a street artist, as you can see. She gets kicked out of her school because the mural that she does ends up just not going so well. And she was in a school for deaf and hard of hearing children. But when she gets kicked out because of her discretions, she ends up going into a mainstream school where she's one of the only individuals who is deaf or hard of hearing. And she's having to not only navigate this world that is not accommodating to her. She just has to get used to just a lot of different what am I trying to say? Not just noises, but just different elements. I'm sorry, I'm spacing out on the word right now. But she's having to learn how to hold her own in this world, how to find her voice, because not only is she deaf, but she also doesn't speak very much as well. So, and if you ever talk with somebody who's deaf, sometimes you might hear like a slight difference in how they talk, and that's because it's hard for them to hear if they can how they sound. So
Mhm.
it's hard for them to form words that may sound right to us. It doesn't necessarily sound right to them. So just dealing with that kind of bullying as well, and then learning how to use her art again as her voice and how to stand up for herself, and even learning to navigate friendships in a world that she's having to navigate with somebody who maybe thinks they know, like, yes, you're an interpreter, but do you really know the deaf culture? And I think that was really important as well because you can, like, just like with any language, you can learn the language and learn how to interpret that language or learn how to translate. But if you don't know the nuances and the culture to really understand that language, then you're not fully immersed in that communication. So I think that was
Mhm.
really important too. Um, I like this because our main character, she does have to deal with a lot of loneliness, going from a school where has a similar disability to her to one that where there isn't anybody, and she's having to have um, an interpreter with her to make sure that she's understanding how her classes are, or at least knowing what the teachers and people are saying. And then, you have people like talking to the interpreter and not her, and she's like, you're talking to me, not the interpreter. So just a lot of that disability etiquette was really
Mhm.
important. But and then I also like that it talks about the arts because a lot of times arts doesn't get their kudos when it's so important for learning and just growth. And yeah, so I really like it. It also doesn't make, their deafness is not their entire identity. It's just a part of them. And I think
Mhm.
that's important as well. So
Can you imagine
disability rep.
though how terrifying that would be to be kicked out of like, the school where she could understand everybody and being put in a school where she really is is other in so many ways.
Yeah. I think about like people who are coming here, like maybe fleeing their countries or just even as immigrants, and they don't understand English fully. And then you're put in a school where you have to figure out what everybody's saying, and you don't always get a translator or an interpreter with you, and you're just having to figure out how to get through the day, pass your classes, navigate a whole new place where you're at, and just try to survive. So I think it's really important to show that that experience is not just special to like immigrants or people going from one country to the next. It can be going from one school to the other that has accommodations for you, and then now they don't. So
Mhm.
I really like that.
Was there any element of romance in this book?
No, not really strong romance. Like there are some like flirtation a little, like she's learning how to talk with new people, and one of them ends up becoming like a friend, but it's never like a romance type. I like more friends to lovers if they ever become lovers, but I love stories that have really good friendships in it. So that was one
Me
of
too. I'm with that.
them. Okay. Curvy Girl Summer by Danielle Allen. So this is a romance for
Mhm.
all my people that like
See it.
romance. Danielle Allen, she writes black romance, as you can see. So her characters are going to be black on black, meaning black woman, black man, black everything. And I say that because a lot of times people really look, some people look for like what are black romances, and then people do interracial. And that's not the same. So I'm just very clear. This is a very black on black romance. And then also the main girl is plus size as well. One thing that, oh, this one really got to me because not only is she dealing with the loss of her sister, but she's dealing with the fact that she's almost 30, and her family for some reason is like, you need to lose weight or else you're never going to have a husband, you're never going to have a family, no one's going to take care of you. And she's like, I don't need to lose weight, I don't need to change anything about me. Also, I don't need a man to make my life happy just because I'm turning 30. So I really appreciated that. I'm not 30 anymore, but like when I was, I would think about like, yeah, I'm really glad that my family never pushed like you need to lose weight, you need to get married, you need to find yourself a man so that you can be taken care of. But I'm just glad that she was able to like stand on her own. It did bother her a lot, and you'll witness that as you read through the book, but just her standing up for herself and understanding that she is her own person. And yes, she can, mourn the loss of her sister, but she does not have to live her sister's life. Excuse me. And that's something that her and her family is having to realize through this book. So, yeah. But I really like this. And, she spends the summer trying to figure out herself. And yeah, she flirts with some people and she goes on dates. And I love that she wears what she wants and she's hot and she's very comfortable in herself. I really love that. So,
Me
yeah, Curvy
too.
Girl Summer.
I like that cover too. But it reminds me of Talia Hibbert, who is one of my very
Yes,
favorite authors, where she really just goes for like she really does delve into, anything that we think people should be. And she's like, nope, nope, they don't need to be like that.
exactly. And I like exactly she reminds me of the Brown sisters, this girl. And I know the second book also deals with her friend who's also plus size. And again, they're very open about themselves. They love themselves. And I just love seeing characters that even if they're not conventionally attractive from what society says, they're like, I know I'm beautiful and I'm happy with myself. So
Mhm.
I love that a lot.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm moving on to science fiction now. It's called Ocean's Godori by Elaine Yu Cho. Sorry. I found this book actually through Hoopla one day. It was like, hey, read a book that's science fiction, and this was one of them. So I was like, oh, okay, this is cool. One, I don't see a lot of Korean science fiction novels really that take place. So this was one that I really liked. It brings the Korean diaspora identity into the sci-fi adventure landscape. So protagonist feels Korean in a future where that culture and family still matter, but also you're dealing with the past and the future, if that makes sense. And in this world, um, not only is our main character Ocean dealing with political tension and finding out that she has to make certain decisions in order to keep her crew alive, but she's also learning about what it means to be proud of yourself in that Korean element, or you not Korean element, but the your Korean culture in a world that is trying to take it away and trying
Mm.
to erase it. So, um, yeah, it's just you're not only dealing with survival because it's a space odyssey or a space like a space opera type thing. You're dealing with that, but there's also that tension of like, how do we keep our identity sacred and secure when all we're trying to do is survive? It's
Hmm.
kind of hard. So I really like that. It definitely focuses on loss. I think I like that none of the characters are like it's super clear who's good or who's bad. Like I do love multifaceted characters like that. And this is the first book in I think the duology. So you learn more about Ocean in this one, and then the next one you learn about somebody from her crew that she had a relationship with in the past, but that ended up didn't go anywhere. And then just without spoiling it, because it is a big part of what's happening in here. So I listened to it, and I recommend, like, if you want to be immersed in it, I recommend listening to it. But
Mhm.
this one was very, very interesting. I liked it.
You know, um I have been obsessed with K-pop demon hunters. Um and I'm so glad that you brought up this book because I think when something like that becomes such a thing that you forget that cultures have so much more than that.
Yeah,
I mean, it's cute, it's funny, it's got the music, it's got some like mythology and things like that, which
hmm
is great. But I think that when you bring in books from those cultures that have such a different perspective and different storyline, that I think it helps me remember that cultures aren't like one dimensional or people
yes.
aren't one dimensional. And so, I didn't really know there was a lot of Korean sci-fi, which is really amazing.
Yes, I there's actually been a few that I've read recently, and I'm just like, wow, they're really killing it in this. Like, I wish that was existing when I was younger because that was
Mhm.
beautiful. So yeah, don't worry,
Yeah.
I'll find some more.
Well, I mean, I think that same with with manga, like, because
Yeah,
we love manga so much, we forget that there are other kinds of books coming out from every culture really right now because
exactly.
yeah, but I mean, I'm just saying, like, when a culture gets known for something like that, then you forget that they can be known for other things as well.
Exactly. No, I agree. I agree. So I like when I try to find something like that too, just so, like you said, it's a reminder, like they can be more than just the one thing that people know them for.
Hmm.
All right, I know it's past Halloween, but I wanted to get back into a little horror. It's called The Year of the Witching by Alexis Henderson. Alexis Henderson is a Black author, and this book is really on dark, witchy, speculative fiction. It's like historical fiction, historical horror. It interrogates the purity culture, racial caste systems, misogyny, and the myths used to justify oppression. So this main character, she's a young woman. She's in what you call a theocratic town and she discovers that everything that she's been taught about, like obedience and sin and her place, is a lie. Witchcraft serves as both a metaphor and a survival tool for her. And well, as you can see, also the main character is like half black, half white. So not only is she a woman in this type of old time town, but she's also a black woman or, partially black woman. And she's being told that she is not as good as her peers, or she's not, she doesn't belong solely because of something that she never had the opportunity to change of herself. And that ends up becoming like a stain on her. And Henderson uses witchcraft as a way to make that difference. And I think I really like that. And um, it does, like I said, it talks about racial caste systems. So you're seeing Black people again on the very bottom of the caste system, Black women especially. It talks about, it kind of, just brings a light on, and we've talked about this before, how horror uses that tool to talk about real world brutalities and things in a way that we're able to understand it and be like, okay, it's a little bit removed from us. And I like that, when she finds out or learns more about like where she comes from and why everything that she's been told was a lie, and do women really need to be in our place, and what does that mean, and why is our obedience like so crucial or whatever, and then seeing her take that power back and do what she needs to do to get out of that power. And that's all I can say without spoiling it. But this one was my first Alexis Henderson book, which I think this was her debut novel as well. So this was a really strong one for her. And I'm curious to see how her other books are because she does write a lot about that. And Yeah, it was kind of creepy too. Creepy again. Like I can't read it at night, but
Oh,
yes,
wait,
some of the
keep holding it up because I have to say, like, the first thing that occurred to me when you said that she was half black, half white, is that the is her face, half of it's in shadow and half of it's in light, as if like that is part of her personality or her,
yeah.
you know, the way that people view her is like half of her is dark and half of her is light because of her mixed race.
Yes. Yeah, I really like how they did that. Cover artists don't get a lot of kudos a lot of times. Like they have been lately, and I'm glad because if you pay attention to a lot of the art that they do, not just the photos, but just how they make like you said, she's half white or half light, half in the shadow. You don't think about that all the time when you're just picking up a book. You're like, oh, and then you can see there's like specks of blood in there. You can't really see it in the camera, but you'll see that and it's like, how is that gonna play?
Hmm.
And if I this cover did also just like pull me in when I
Yeah.
first picked it up.
Well, I was gonna say the covers can really be horrible. Like they can really, like they can have like nothing to do with the story. So I always appreciate somebody who actually has a good sense of what the story might be about, and it reflects it in the cover. And
Yeah.
that's why I really don't like those cartoony covers, especially for the romances, because I'm like, you don't know anything about the story from this. There's
Yeah.
no creativity here for me, in understanding like what's going to be happening in the story.
Yeah. 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 No, I agree. I
I
agree.
am one of those librarians that judges a book by its cover. I'm sorry.
But that's why they spend so much money on cover art and stuff because people do that. So, as much as we would love to say don't judge a book by its cover, people do that, unfortunately. But that's what helps sell books.
Yeah, yeah,
It helps people
absolutely.
read
I will
them.
definitely buy a book if I love the cover, and sometimes it doesn't matter the story. But again, I won't buy a cover that, I mean, I get annoyed when the cover doesn't really get a good sense of the
Yeah.
story.
Yeah.
So
And then
personal pet peeve.
no, no, I get it. I get it. And then apparently I wanted one more witchy book called Venko by Sherry DeMaline. This one, Sherry is an indigenous author. She's Métis. And all of the books that she writes, she really ties in her indigenous heritage in it. So not only does this book, it's a contemporary fantasy book as well. So you got magical realism. It takes place in our world. If you notice, Venko is kind of like flipped of coven. So you're like, oh, what is this? Dealing with witches. It also has some humor in it. There's some gore in it, just it's a quest and it deals with generational survival. And I like that this book talks about the 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 identity of a coven being a generational thing and being more of like almost a corporate thing. So the company is like the coven is like called Venco, and they are trying to reclaim their power, reclaim their story, but also trying to protect themselves from an ancient enemy that has been trying to destroy them since colonial times during like Salem witch trials. So not only does it talk about that indigenous resilience of, these women being Métis specifically for Demoline at least, but having their identity stripped away from colonization, them trying to reclaim it and also trying to bring that identity back into themselves in as many ways as they can through their generational ties. Even if it's not, it could be mother daughter, it could be spousal, and just the women that become your found family through the coven, they're bringing that back. And I think that's so important as well because, like, I love found families. And when I think about like covens and witches, you're not always related by blood. You're, by family, by heritage, but you make that family. And I think this was a really good example of a found family trope without it being so rooted in like fantasy or, like some other found families where it's like, oh, we're all different or, I don't know how I'm trying to explain it, but this version of a found family was really unique to me because of not only the witch element, the coven element, but also the female element as well. You're dealing with witches, and they're a matriarchy. Like you're gonna have the maiden, the mother, and the crone. Always those three. How do they relate to your life, and how do we make sure that we protect women in general, and that was powerful for me. So
Mhm.
yeah. So I know one more witch slash Halloween book for November, but that's where I'm ending it today.
Well, I think the way that you describe that makes perfect sense why an indigenous writer would write this story because witches are very much of the earth, like like you said, uh, and so are Native Americans as well. Like they know nature, they know the best practices for irrigation and things like that. So I think that's a really good. I mean, I'm just surprised there's not more stories like that. Maybe not about witches, but about that sisterhood that happens for Indigenous women.
Yeah. Like I think the one that I really liked, I think we talked about it was like Firekeeper's Daughter. It doesn't necessarily focus on the sisterhood, but you do see that in that book, and that is another Indigenous author. But then it's more talking about the missing women and girls elements
Hmm.
of it as well, which is so important. So yeah, I just have to do a little bit more of a deep dive, but hopefully find some more books that talk about that sisterhood that we see in different indigenous cultures and really that family heritage and family root that is really important to me as well. But
Hmm.
I know I forgot to ask a lot of questions this time. Always do
That's
that.
okay because Cassandra just wrote that her favorite Indigenous author is Louise Erdrich, which I also love her, and I think
Yeah.
she really she really made the path. Like what is that trail? She's such a trailblazer, and she really created a space for more Indigenous authors to tell their stories.
Yeah.
And yeah, and her poetry is just magnificent. I really, really enjoy her too, Cassandra. Have you
Yeah.
read her, Leland?
There is a book that I'm supposed to read from her sometime soon. I don't remember what it is because there's a lot on my list actually from her, but I'm having to figure out which one's the first one that I'm going to read. But no, I haven't had the opportunity to read her yet, but she's on my list.
Hmm. Yeah, she's been writing for a while, and I think that, like I
Yeah.
said, I think she's actually relatively local to Massachusetts. I don't know. I'll have to check. But
Oh, that's cool.
yeah, I don't take my word for it because it just might be wishful thinking. Oh, Cassandra said try the Roundhouse, which is really, really good.
Okay, I'll write that down and I'll let you know if I get to it, Cassandra. Thank you.
As well. Thank you, Leland, for all of these books, these wonderful, you know, your thoughtful information about why you like these books and why we should like them, because I think we should all be reading as widely as possible. And I love that there are books out in the world like this, and you bring them to us. So
Thank you so much.
we'll see you in December. And for everybody that's been here, thank you so much for being here with us. And I hope you have a wonderful night, a great Thanksgiving if you celebrate. And we'll see you in December.
Yes. Bye.
Good night, everybody.